Hello everybody and welcome back. Good to talk to all of you again today. And today we are going to take a look at submarine gameplay and anti-submarine warfare gameplay. Please do keep in mind that this is taken from their Gamescom stream. I've of course muted the sound because there's a lot of conversation and dialogue that's happening during their stream. And one other thing is this is very much a work in progress. So anything that is shown during the stream and anything that I talk about here in this video very likely will maybe change by the time this makes it even anywhere close to the live servers, although how much change is up to be decided. Still, it does give a relatively good impression of some of the things with regards to submarine gameplay and ASW. And as I sort of go through the gameplay video, there are going to be certain things that I'm going to point out and sort of highlight and say, okay, maybe we should maybe be a little wary of certain things, or maybe there's some things that are going to be interesting, exciting, and maybe some gameplay things that could be unique. During the stream, they do flip between two perspectives, that of the destroyer and that of the submarine, and so we'll see how things go. And do keep in mind, of course, that the submarine that they're playing right now is a tier 6 submarine, so we're not talking the top tier. And one of the first notable things that I noticed on the stream was that at 3/4 speed, the submarine was making about 18 knots. And at full speed on the surface, the submarine was going to be doing 23 knots. And submarines are also really stealthy on the surface. So one of the first things that I am going to go, oh, I'm not really sure about that, is that speed. Submarines, I think, should be quite a bit slower. They don't need to, I think, go that fast considering their concealment. And one of the issues I have with that really high speed is the fact that at tier 6, which the submarine's at, you're going to face ships at tier 5 and ships at tier 6 and ships at tier 7. Some of those ships, especially the battleships, aren't that much faster, and in some cases are even slower than this submarine. Okay, so here's the first sort of thing about the submarine, is that when you fire your torpedoes, and you can see where the torpedoes have been fired to, you can also execute a ping. Now there's two spots on the ping, the bow and the stern, and if you can hit both of those points, then you get 2 bonuses. And the first bonus, the very first ping you land, you get a homing bonus, and you can see the torpedoes coming here from the submarine. They're actually turning. You can see it. They're trying to home in on that particular ping. If you hit the second ping point, so you've got both the pings, then the torpedoes, that if they do hit, they will do tremendous amounts of damage. I think that when they were explaining it, they said something like it's enters some sort of like deep water state and basically bypasses the torpedo defense. So as a submarine player, you're basically launching your torpedoes and you're trying to hit your pings, right? Now for the surface ship, the destroyer in particular, this I wasn't, I guess, super thrilled about, although please do keep in mind that this is like a 1 versus 1 essentially, so this might be quite different if you have a lot more ships, because what happens is you get this big circle that the destroyer has to go and chase, if that's the way to put it. The destroyer's task essentially, it chases the circles to hunt submarines. Like, that's it, I think. I mean, maybe there's some aspect where you're trying to like proximity spot them and things like that, but that's kind of hard considering proxy spot distance is very low. So my guess is that's what's happening, is that you're just trying to get those circles. And when the destroyer does get to the circle and it gets enough of the circles in a row, it starts to automatically pop off anti-submarine weapons. At least that's what I was seeing, because I didn't see any kind of input manually from the destroyer player at all. It was just like, go to the circles, hit enough of them, and the weapons start deploying. So currently I believe the destroyer here is looking for the submarine. Okay, there you go. You can see there's a circle there. Guess that's where the submarine is. I'm not 100% sure how in this particular case the circle came up, because I don't think that the destroyer was pinged or anything like that. So not 100% sure how this circle came up, and of course the destroyer didn't make it in time, so the submarine essentially disappeared again. And also, it seems like this is only applicable currently in the game to destroyers only. I'm wondering if other ship classes are going to get this particular circle thing as a way for them to maybe deal with things. Maybe not battleships, but like, would cruisers get this ability? That's hard to say. Okay, so something has been spotted again, and it looks like this is a proxy spot, at least judging by an icon. I'm not really sure, maybe they changed the icons, but that looks like it's a possible proxy spot. Maybe the submarine right now is at deep water. Okay, so it's come up again at a point that the circles popped up again. This part obviously I think is not 100% clear how this is actually working. Okay, oh yes, proxy spot, 1.6 kilometers. Okay, there we go. And so the destroyer goes into a circle. Submarine is, I guess, somewhere in that circle, and then this is what the destroyer does. You basically chase this white circle. Circle gets smaller, 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 and then there goes the anti-submarine weapons. I think that's about the current interaction from what I'm seeing on this gameplay here. Yeah, and a bunch of target hits, some flooding has been caused. 7,740 damage is actually quite a lot, considering the submarine, if I remember correctly, only has something like 9,000 HP. So submarine's not super healthy right now. And the circle is still there, but the destroyer isn't going to be able to turn itself around fast enough in order to get back to the circle. So still proxy spotted. Is there going to be another circle that comes up? I mean, the submarine is like right here. So I'm a little uncertain, for example, how the submarine is supposed to evade a destroyer, considering the destroyer is actually quite a bit faster than the submarine. And, you know, is there limits to the depth charges? Like, can the submarine just crash dive out of it? Of course, there's still some things I don't think are fully dealt with or explained yet in the gameplay footage that we're seeing. I mean, the submarine seems to have gotten away here. Yeah, it seems to have escaped. And the destroyer doesn't seem to be able to find where the submarine is. Okay, so going back to the very first thing that I was talking about, because I was talking about the speed, and the speed kind of concerns me. Okay, so at periscope depth, which is the depth at which you're able to actually attack a ship, the submarine doesn't seem to go super fast. Its speed is actually on the slow side, but if it's surfaced or deep dive, then you're basically getting that full speed of the submarine, which is quite fast. We're talking, like you can see right now, the submarine's already 16, 17. It's going to go upwards of like 20 knots, and on the surface as well. And part of my concern, again, tier 6 submarine, you're running to like tier 5 ships. So imagine like a stock New York, for example. Like, I mean, don't run. You might as well just alt F4 if the submarine comes at you, because you're only going to die tired because you can't escape. Submarines while underwater are at least immune to regular surface torpedoes, as this is pretty actually kind of a cool effect as the torpedoes go over your head. That's cool to actually be able to see that. Yeah, that's a neat little thing to do there. Okay, so submarines are immune to that. Yeah, they're fast. You can see about 21, 22 knots at full speed. Submarines coming back onto the periscope depth. I believe that's what's happening. Oh no, they're actually coming all the way up now, because I guess you're trying to recharge the oxygen. The oxygen seems to last a while, but when you do run out and you get to the surface, it seems like, when I was looking at it earlier, the oxygen recharge time does seem to be a little bit on the slow side. You can see the submarine's now up, and you can see like 1% oxygen gain is a bit on the slow side. And of course, while surface, the destroyer spotted him, was able to shoot him and actually get some damage here. Even at periscope depth, even unspotted, was able to get shots in. However, once off detect, no lock on, so not able to shoot anymore. I guess if you were a really brave destroyer player, you could maybe, like in a situation like that where the submarine is relatively close, maybe you could charge it down, although you would put yourself at a certain degree of risk, considering that the submarine is able to fire torpedoes, ping you, and have those torpedoes home in on you. Speaking of the pinging system, it didn't seem like there was any requirement to ping within X second after weapon launch. It wasn't like you had a window that you had to ping. So there is, I guess, a possibility that if you were a good sub player, you could wait out the ping a little bit. So wait until like your torpedoes have gotten somewhat downrange and they've covered some of that distance, and then you hit the pings. maybe even in rapid succession, so giving the enemy maybe less time to react. Because when I was watching this gameplay, I didn't see any sort of like, hey, you have to get the ping off within 10 seconds or 5 seconds in order for your torpedoes to start homing. There was just like nothing. You fire torpedoes and torpedoes travel like regular torpedoes until that ping actually lands. So possibly that's what's happening. So we'll have to see how that really gets implemented. But yeah, I mean, the submarine gameplay, if I was to make an sort of like a early opinion-based kind of statement, I mean, it could be fun for the sub player because you're able to be this very, very stealthy, very, very concealed target. You've got all these little perks for you to get damage, but on the receiving end of this, I am not so sure, right? Like, again, I mentioned an example. You have a surface submarine that is super stealthy that goes 23 knots at tier 6, where you've got battleships like the US standard type battleships that do 21. Not really sure how it's going to feel as a US standard type battleship if a submarine decides to come after you, because man, that submarine could just run you down, right? I have a little bit of concerns there. And the ASW gameplay, yeah, I think the ASW gameplay, if I'm really thinking about it, it might work better if you were in a larger battle where destroyers have more restrictions on where they could and could not go. So if you think about like a full battle with 12 people, then destroyers sometimes would be reluctant to go to certain places because they would risk getting spotted and then shot at and then possibly get blown up. So as a submarine, if you're able to get yourself into that kind of a position, you make it very difficult for the enemy team to counter you, potentially. I mean, there was a data mine data that came out by Game Models 3D. This was like, I don't know, maybe a week ago or something like that, where the tier 10 submarine had like a torpedo data that was like 18-kilometer distance for its range. And so now that we see how the pings work, that you could really have some sniping action happen there with the submarines. And maybe that's what they're going for, is like a torpedo sniper. Not 100% sure. This is just me guessing based on that data mine data and then of course the gameplay that we were shown today. So like maybe that's what they're supposed to be, right? So let's see what happens to this battleship here. This battleship is at 3.6 kilometers right now. Okay, so there's the ping that got sent out, and again, you didn't see any timer requirements. Target ping happened. So those torpedoes are now homing. Submarine is still at periscope depth, judging from what I can tell. And the battleship is closing the distance right now. So my guess is, based on the fact that the submarine just got detected and it's outside the proximity distance, that when you're in that periscope depth, like, you can be spotted, but the spotting distance is less than when you're on the surface, and that makes perfect sense. Okay, so once again, the destroyer gets that circle. The destroyer didn't even actually make it onto the circle, to be honest, from what I could tell. Proxy spotting is still in effect, although nothing's actually come up. So from the proxies and the wait, what? Okay, so I guess there was a circle, maybe just didn't render correctly. Okay, so that was the destroyer getting a kill. Okay, so maybe that was just some sort of something not rendering correctly or something like that. Who knows? Okay, so now they're going to go back into the game again, and they're bringing out the German U-boat and the destroyer again. So we're going to be able to hopefully see the battle once again and see if there's anything else that I can pick up in the next little while. But from first impressions, the submarine graphically and the environment graphically looks really good. The gameplay itself for the submarine seems to require a certain degree of skill, so that's a positive. Usually you want to see at least some kind of skill being required for ship class, and that's a really good positive thing to see, because the submarine now, especially if you think about like sort of tier 8, tier 10, because I think it's going to be all like even tiers or whatever, then requiring that skill to position correctly, because you can definitely see that when you get caught out, the submarine is pretty vulnerable. So that is a positive. Tier 6, I'm concerned with mostly the speed, because there's a lot of slow ships down here, especially battleships, and I don't really want them to feel like there's nothing they can do to counter a ship class like this, so that's a little bit of a thing. The destroyer anti-submarine warfare gameplay, it's fully automated, essentially. You're basically chasing a circle. It didn't look all that exciting to me, at least that's my opinion so far. Okay, so the German submarine's going full speed on the surface. Here we go. This is another tier 6 submarine. You can already see the speed is just picking up. 22.4. Okay, I wonder what the full speed is. They haven't done a straight line to be able to get a full speed. Submarines are able to turn seemingly relatively quickly too. So yeah, I mean, if I was playing a slow standard US battleship, I mean, I'd have concerns right about here. Don't run, says the submarine. You'll only die tired. Oh man. Okay, and the submarine's diving. Okay, so I mean that's, yeah, see the underwater portion graphically and everything just does look really good. I mean the submarines themselves are modeled beautifully as well, so definitely in that regard there is positive for sure. Do I have gameplay concerns? Yeah, absolutely. But we'll see how this one goes. The German submarine, I think, has forward and rear torpedoes. So you can see when you select the torpedo, you also have the ping ability, but there was no like window of time. So my guess is that there's some shenanigans that you can do with that ping. Like there's definitely going to be some weird things that you can do. Now on the surface, it looks like the submarine does not have the ping. So if you fire a torpedo from the surface, you're basically going to be a destroyer. Yeah, because you don't see a ping here when the weapon is selected, but when you go into periscope depth, that's when you have the ping. So I guess that's going to be a special, like, get into periscope depth for that purpose. And maybe that's where, if you're a standard type ship, maybe there's an escape chance there, because when they're in periscope, they're slower. This submarine does 23.5 knots. Oh man. A tier 6? I wonder if the higher tier submarines slow down. Like, I almost want to see it if, like, the high tier submarines are, like, let's say at this speed, and then that makes sense because everything at the higher tiers are faster. But then for submarines at the lower tiers, their speed actually gets knocked down a little bit so that they're sort of, representative of that submarine historically being sort of slower, more vulnerable. Okay, so now in periscope depth, there's the oxygen drain. There's another interesting thing. So 90%. Okay, the oxygen drain is actually quite fast. Let me see if I can get a stopwatch and I can actually see if I can time this. Oops, sorry about that. Let me see if I can get a timer on this to see, like, relatively speaking, how long this oxygen tank will last, because it will give an interesting amount of sort of time about how much this thing will last. So 83%, once it drops to 82, I'll hit the, okay, so start, and 81. It lasts about 2.5 seconds, it seems like. So it's the oxygen, every tick goes down quite fast. So got about 250 seconds, let's say, from 100% down to 0. So you are, as a submarine player, I think, going to spend a certain amount of time definitely above water, using your excellent concealment as a way to spot things, to, I guess, conserve your oxygen. I guess that's how it's going to go. Sorry for any kind of frame stutter or anything that's like that, if you see it, because it was recorded off a live stream. So if they had any, like, technical stutter issue, I caught it. All right, so there was a destroyer there. I mean, this German U-boat does seem to go through its oxygen relatively quickly. They did make a point during the stream, especially in the last video clip, where they did say that the American submarines had larger oxygen tanks. So maybe that's a national trait for the US or something. You stay underwater for longer. Okay, so let's take a look if there's anything interesting here. 8.2 kilometer destroyer, so that's quite far. And let's see, the destroyer looks like it's going away. I mean, the torpedo range for this German U-boat is like 9 kilometers. Okay, the submarine has come up onto the surface here. All right, let's see here. I'm trying to close the range on this destroyer a little bit, because when the submarine was at periscope depth, the speed was slower, so there's no way to close that distance effectively. Okay, back to periscope depth. Now the destroyer is coming in. Okay, so there's one ping. That caught the front. Okay, so the destroyer has been pinged now. The destroyer now knows that the submarine should be here. fire a second torpedo, fire another ping. But there can be some sort of interesting cross-draw patterns here. Look at that. Look at the torpedoes homing in. There it goes. So the first set of torpedoes are homing in from the right, and then the second set of torpedoes is now homing in from the left. So the destroyer essentially is going to have to dodge multiple groups of homing torpedoes. Okay, and then of course there is torpedo set number 3, which I guess is the rear-mounted set here. So if you actually had a submarine with a lot of forward torpedoes, and I don't know how many there are going to be in the forward arc, but if you had a lot of submarines in the forward arc, that could be pretty scary. Imagine if you could do like 3 different pings and torpedoes now homing at you from like 3 different directions. That'd be hard to dodge as a surface ship player. Okay, so the submarine there was able to get some good hits on that DD. That destroyer, that was rough. Okay, so now the destroyer, from my guess, has proxy spotted the submarine. But I'm not sure if there was a circle. Maybe there was. It's hard to say. I mean, I guess not, because there's no depth charges when the destroyer was that close. There's a bit of sort of uncertainty, I guess, in how that's supposed to fully work. The submarine has actually kind of screwed himself a little bit here, because during the gameplay here, if you've noticed, like the submarine spent a lot of time early game going underwater. Now when it's, you know, kind of in danger, it doesn't really have enough oxygen from my looking at that gauge. 13%, I mean, it's going pretty quickly. So about another 25 seconds worth of safety here. Submarine's trying to come up for air. And that destroyer is at 4.2 kilometers. So that means, oh, actually, no, came up to periscope depth only. Still utilizing air here. Oh, yeah, periscope depth, the submarines are not very fast. Look at that. It's like, okay, so maybe that little concern that I had about the low tier battleships, maybe that's not as serious. I don't know, hard to say. Okay, okay, there goes the torpedo. There goes the ping. Target has gotten pinged. Okay, so now these torpedoes are going to be homing. You can see it. The torpedo is actually turning to the right here as the destroyer is making a forward movement here. Okay, surface spotted here, 2 kilometers away. Now this is definitely proxy spot here. Okay, the destroyer has also launched torpedoes. Oof. This is basically turning into this is like a standard destroyer fight, you know, like the submarine's basically acting like a destroyer with its torpedoes here. And actually the destroyer got taken down. And that's about all I've got for you guys for the submarine gameplay and the destroyer gameplay, because that's pretty much all they showed really on stream. I think they did a little bit more after, but you know, this pretty much shows everything. What do you think? Sub players, like it, not like it? Let me know in the comment section below. And surface ship players, ASW, good, bad, you know, let me know your thoughts, right? So from all that, folks, have a good one, take care, and I'll talk to all of you again soon.